Hello, hello, hello. Cheers, Kevin here, and welcome back to Minecraft Agoraphobia. And this episode is going to be a little bit different from usual, although we do finally have some wheat. And with wheat, we can make bread, which means we can start to finally have a food source, which is going to be incredibly helpful for the rest of our travels. So there's a little bit of a problem, as I alluded to at the end of the last episode. Now, I'm releasing a whole bunch of these, and I don't know how long this is going to continue, but right now I'm very enthused about this series, and so, I'm making things pretty much daily, and even spending a little bit of off-camera time hardening up our bunker, let's say. But no, as I alluded to in the end of the last episode, I managed to lose all of the voiceover audio for this video. And the reason for that is I've been playing with some circuitry in the house, swapping out some light switches for smart switches and stuff, and forgot that, hey, when I toggle the power, the device that I'm recording into also needs to be rebooted. So I was recording on my PC, but the preamp that the microphone is plugged into was not on. And so, I did record an empty voice track, but there was no voice signal on it, which is very sad. So we are harvesting some wood here. What you're seeing now is me kind of having to go through and do sort of a post commentary on this and figure out exactly what that's going to look like. But I think it's going to be helpful because as the series goes on, I'm going to have to figure out all sorts of different ways of making this material, whether that's talking live or doing voiceover. Okay, I can hear some rain, so that's very interesting. But it is going to be a little bit challenging right at the outset because I haven't done this before, or at least if I have done it, it's been in the context of sort of doing a general thoughts about things voiceover. Well, in things like Kerbal Space Program, where we're waiting for a rocket to get all the way to wherever it's going. But in this episode, we're really doing a couple of things. One is that we really need to expand the materials that we have available to us. We need to start to gather some of the things that we're going to need, such as sand. Because without sand, we can't make glass. And without glass, it's going to be pretty darn dark and scary in here. We're also going to, in the process of trying to find some sand, we're going to need to look for some sugarcane. Well, actually, I take that back. We're not going to get sugarcane in this episode. Sorry, spoilers. This is hard post commentary. Okay. The goal, though, is that we're going to make ourselves a bit of a tower. And to do that, I am going to, any moment now, start punching out that little canopy that we have up there, and expanding that out a little bit. Ooh, some thunder. It's nice and scary. We're going to go ahead and expand that out. And then through the magical use of probably more fences, we're going to start building a tower that actually protrudes above the ground. Now, we're going to remain indoors. We're going to remain surrounded by things. Occasionally, we'll allow ourselves to kind of omit a roof, because I think that that's fairly much within the rules that we've set for ourselves. But we are going to make some pistons, and through the use of pistons, not 16 of them, we can actually push up a whole bunch of fence gates and make ourselves a little kind of peep tower so we can get a sense of our surroundings and what resources there are to gather. We are going to definitely need some sugarcane eventually because without paper, we can't make a large map, which means we really can't see what all the surrounding biomes and stuff are. And since we're going to have to do a bunch of underground tunneling to get to those biomes, because we're not going over land, we're not going outside, we're going to need to sort that out. So let me go ahead and cut ahead to the point where we're actually starting to put some of our tower together, and I'll talk you through that then. So we're making our way down here, and this is the edge of our little chunk. And remember, we are trying our best to stay building everything within the single chunk, because that's going to mean that when we migrate to 1.13 in, I don't know, several years, because they're rewriting Forge from scratch, we'll be able to kind of delete all of the other chunks. So it will really just be our home, and our home will kind of, will be Wizard of Ozing, I guess. Hopping from one area to the next. And I'm really just running up all these fence gates to be sort of the front wall. We're making a 4x4 little, I guess, observation tower. And if we put these in, I'm doing my best to reduce the amount of times that I'm going to have to push this button and refill. And of course, we are limited by the piston push limit. But after we get this front bit done, then we can knock things out. So I've also in that intervening clip put a little bit of a dirt block roof in there, and you can see me starting to dig it out. Gonna have to fix this flooring out a little bit, but now we do have that front wall in place. I'm gonna have to put in some side walls as well. And really, the goal is just to get a sense of where we were at. Now, I mentioned that I had done a little bit of testing of this concept before starting the series, and really, what I did is I went through and tried the first few nights of Minecraft Agoraphobia with just randomly generated seeds. And I got pretty lucky, I think, with some of the seeds. Generally, there was a desert somewhere nearby, which meant plenty of sand, which meant, of course, plenty of glass. Unfortunately, here, there is just no desert in sight. And you'll see once we get done with this, that we do actually find a little bit of sand. There is an ocean bed, sorry, not an ocean bed, a riverbed that has some sand. And so we'll head on over there after we've built this tower. But rather than make you guys sit through the rest of this time lapse, why don't we just jump into it in the current time, and I will show you where we're at. So here we are in a future version of this world, and I've actually expanded this a little bit more than I did while recording this video. We've gone up a little bit taller because we did run out of fence posts and whatnot. But I'll go ahead and bring us up to the very top here, and you see, I have sort of knocked these out just so we can get a better view, although I'm not sure that that's the most helpful. Let me go ahead, and I know this is going to drag the frame rate down to something crazy, but let me go ahead and expand our video settings. We'll expand our render distance to something stupid. and then deal with the consequences of that terrible decision. And you can see, yeah, it's taking a while for these to load in, but we should start to get a sense of exactly what our surroundings look like. So we've got some mountains over there. You can see there is some light over there. I'm pretty sure that's just got to be a lava pool. Although, I mean, if it were, it would be lovely to discover that it's a village. Finding some villagers would certainly be helpful. Certainly, I mean, if we found a village, maybe we could build ourselves a little iron farm within our chunk. That would be amazing. We are going to be building an awful lot of automated farms because if we're not going out and exploring and harvesting resources, we need to make sure that we're as renewable as we possibly can be. So this is sort of the riverbed that I alluded to earlier, and we found we're going to head over there very shortly to gather up some sand. And if we look over here, we've got, I guess, a tall something biome with dark spruce. Yeah, that's dark spruce, right? But much to my chagrin, not seeing any desert. So I think what we're going to have to do is rely on creating wider and wider maps until we really get a sense of where a desert is. And if not, then I guess we're going to have to create a map, dig underground very far in one direction, and make another map and kind of continue to do that until we find a desert biome. Now, the reason we need a desert biome is because we need cactuses. A lot of the open computer stuff relies on printed circuit boards. And if you've ever seen a circuit board, you know that they're this lovely dark green color. And of course, you get lovely dark green from cactus dye. So we need to be able to make ourselves a bit of a cactus farm to support our open computer needs. That's going to mean we need to find ourselves a desert. So this is, yeah, what we've built so far. I'm considering this to be indoors. I suppose technically, I guess a spider could climb up and get through here, but I'm considering that to be fine for now. I suppose we could also replace this with glass panes once we get the sand and stuff. But rather than try and talk over some prior footage, figured it would just be easier to pop up here and take a look at that. And also, as I guess a little bit of a spoiler for the next episode, I do see something over there. It looks like we do have a little bit of sugarcane. So hopefully we can snag some of that in the next episode. But anyway, now that this thing has been built with a lot of ladders, a lot of fence gates, and a lot of just pistoning up and up and up and up and up, we can head down and start gathering up some sand. So let's jump back to this current episode's prior footage. And with that, it is time to go a tunneling. So we're actually going to start our tunnel from down here. And I started with 2 blocks just so that it would be centered, because everything has a 2-block center because we're in a 16 by 16 chunk. But eventually just said, okay, we're just going to go and dig our way down. So we're digging ourselves out, trying to stay underground, and then we'll basically end once we hit water. And I don't remember exactly why I paused here. What exactly? Okay. Well, I must have tabbed out and been looking at something super important, most assuredly. And as we dig through here, we're coming up on it, but we are going to discover a little friend. Yeah, the idea is that we would dig until we found water. But before we found water, we found a little chicken, and that chicken laid an egg, and we managed to get that chicken trapped in here. Now, I actually did end up building a tiny little chicken farm. Hello, little chicken. Was wondering vaguely how I was going to be able to keep it because I don't have any name tags. We don't have an AFK fish farm, so I don't have any of the free resources you can sort of get through that. Although we'll probably have to build one of those soon. Eventually, I just said, okay, well, we'll check on it and hope that we get some eggs. Eventually, did just kind of get one of these sitting on top of a hopper, and we ended up with a ton of eggs. So we should be able to make ourselves a chicken farm pretty soon too. But we continue digging through, and eventually, we are going to hit water. Now, of course, I thought that we would manage to stay underground, but I really underestimated just how high up our spawn point is. We're really on the top of a hill, so if we dig out in any direction, we end up hitting ground no matter how far down we start from. But as we're going along here, I did want to sort of ask, for those of you who are enjoying this series, if you could help me understand, because this is something that is somewhat new, or at least stuff that I haven't tried to do in quite a long time. I would love to know sort of the stuff that you are enjoying, the stuff that maybe you're not enjoying so much, things that I can work on improving. Obviously, this video is a little bit different, just because of the lost audio and trying to make all of that work. But what are the things that you are enjoying? What are the things you are not? Also, while I have you, so we're digging out this sand. We finally managed to get to the riverbed. And as we start to dig through, I get a little bit greedy. And I'm not entirely sure. This is kind of one of those places where I'm not entirely sure of the rules that we want to keep for this series. For example, here, there is no sort of roof above our heads, which means that, are we outside? I'm not entirely sure. And this is sort of a question. So I start to feel a little guilty, and so I sort of patch that up. But at the same time, I want more sand because I want at least a stack of sand so that we can create some glass, which should mean that we can create little small, with a piston and some glass, we can create some little lookout posts as we're exploring, which will make it a lot easier to zero in on things like the sugarcane and whatnot for getting paper. But here's the question. As far as the rules go, now obviously this is all for fun, and the series is Minecraft Agoraphobia. We're trying to stay indoors, but do we consider underwater to be indoors? Are we indoors if we? I mean, we're certainly exposed to more UV radiation being underwater, right? Because it focuses the things, and you get more sunburn when you're swimming and whatnot. But the question is, do we consider this to be outside or not? And it does have some interesting implications when we do upgrade to Minecraft 1.13, because that's the aquatic update. And you can build conduits and have underwater breathing, and we could do a whole bunch of cool underwater stuff, still never going over land, but it does open up a lot of flexibility for us if we choose to go that route. At the same time, I can understand sort of the purist attitude of saying, you know what, that really feels like outside to me, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Or if we do rather we should use robots and whatnot to do this for us by proxy. Now, I think this is about the time when I start to have, okay, so we've got 60. Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more. And so I think for this video, I'm giving myself a pass, but I started to get a little bit greedy here. And I wanted to I was very careful to make sure we didn't quite crest above water, but I did want to sort of peek because we see there's a little bit of a lake bed over there. And I keep having to duck back and forth because I have forgotten up until this point that, hey, you can just pop torches down and get some air. And at this point, I start to spy, or I keep going back and forth, whatever. I start to spy at the bottom of that lake bed. I don't know why I'm digging those out. Oh, I guess I'm just trying to make sure I don't crest over the top. Yeah, there we go. Okay, come on, Kevin. Finally figured out that we can reset our bubbles that way, although that won't be the case in 1.13. We pop down here and we see there is some clay. Now, clay is incredibly important for this series because it's another ingredient for those printed circuit boards, which are really the basis of a lot of things. Now, the recipe is fairly generous. We don't need a ton of, all right, there we go. Almost suffocating. We don't need a ton in order to produce the stuff we're going to need, and we should be able to produce a fair amount of equipment using what we found, and at that point we can just program robots to go out and find stuff for us, right? Hopefully. Clay is not a renewable resource. It's also very difficult to find. So I said, okay, you know what? We're going to go out into this ocean bed or this lake bed and gather up this clay now, because it definitely gives us some abilities that we wouldn't have otherwise. And hunting for this stuff otherwise would be a nightmare. I suppose we could have also taken the time to dig underneath, but as you'll know, if I ever look up, I'm not sure if I ever do in this clip, but we are open to skylight, right? And whether we consider that to be indoors or not, I think I will leave up to you. So let me know your thoughts in the comments as to whether or not we consider this to be in the rules or perhaps out of the rules. So once we've got this, there are a couple of other resources we're going to need. We're going to need, as I mentioned, the cactus green dye, and then we're also going to need some slime. And slime is going to be a bit of an annoyance, but certainly something that we can manage because we'll deal with that underground. So at this point, I'm going to head my way back and set up a quick little chicken farm. And unfortunately, I've actually disassembled that chicken farm by the time you're going to see this next this next video. But here we are. I've managed to lure the one chicken back and threw eggs and managed to get another little baby chicken. And started to make myself a little chicken farm. So it's just a hopper on top of a chest and a bunch of chickens standing on top of that hopper, and surrounded by some blocks and some slabs on top of there so they can't jump out. And yeah, I think that is pretty much going to do it for this video. Now, I know timing is a little short, so we'll actually jump into present world now just to kind of show you some of the stuff that I've been doing off camera, and then we'll pick things up in the next video from there. But eager to know what you guys think about the whole being underwater thing if we don't have stuff over us. Now, of course, we could eventually get to the point where we just, use pistons or use robots to lay a bunch of glass over the ocean bed or the lake bed or whatever it may be, and then we'll be in then we can go ahead and swim around to our heart's content. But should that be a precondition? Eager to know what you think. I really could go either way on this, so I will be happy to abide by your decision. Of course, I'll probably also have to ask you guys for a ruling as far as what should we be doing in the nether and even the end once we get to that point. So far, I'm avoiding going into the nether because I really do feel like, oh, well, that's a big wide open space. That doesn't seem particularly in the in the spirit of things. So let's jump in to the current thing, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I've been working on just to kind of tidy the end of this video up. Okay, so backing down from our wonderful pillar, I have been doing some terraforming since the end of that video. We have, as you can see, plenty of farmland here. I've made ourselves a little path using path blocks and the dirt shovel. Doing perfectly fine on trees, but the real transformation actually occurs under here in our little bunker. And if we come down here, you'll see that chicken farm that used to be there is no longer there, and we also have these lovely birch walls. And these birch walls actually go all the way around here, and they actually go down all the way to bedrock, which was a very long and arduous process, which is why it's not happening in a video, because man, that would be dull. But I really wanted to make sure that we had a good sense of where the boundaries of our chunk are, so we know where we can be building. And of course, to facilitate all of this birch, we needed to make ourselves a bit of a more industrial tree farm. I think we'll still keep the one upstairs for aesthetics. But these are these are our trees. There are many like them, but these are ours. Chopping all of these down, creating all of the birch wood, and digging our way all the way down to bedrock. So you remember in previous episodes we had dug down the four corners. We've now gone down, and I think eventually we'll probably clear most of this out. Certainly haven't done that yet, but made a 10 tall little tree farm there. Apparently 10 blocks is going to make up your tree farm a little more efficient if you're using birch, which is probably why we weren't getting as many saplings planted or spawning at that top level. So down here, nothing much. Just sort of excavated the bedrock layer, giving ourselves a little 3 tall ceiling. Not much to speak of. Just gathering, an awful lot of cobblestone in the process. Furnace down here, and So we have our work cut out for us in future episodes, but we're finally starting to define the edges of our domain, and we'll figure out all of the things that we want to build inside our little humble base. Now, of course, with this actually defined, this does mean that we could dedicate some of the space in here to, say, a mob spawner or a something else farm, any number of other farms. We could create a more efficient wheat farm or a carrot farm, or once we get those resources. But of course, I think that is going to have to take place after we get ourselves access to that sugarcane and to ideally some cactus. If we can find some desert biomes and gather some cactus that way, really really need that because we need the dye. Let's go ahead and turn on our crazy render distance once more and drop down the frame rate, just because I'm not sure if I showed this to you guys in daylight. Yeah, I think we were still in evening times. It does seem to go out for quite a ways without much of a sign of a desert, though there are some mushroom blocks over there which are nice. There's a swampland right on the edge there that we can sort of barely make out. Can't really see much past this biome. Maybe that's a jungle tree back there. Not probably not. Who knows? We'll eventually discover all of this once we get some of the sugarcane and start building some maps and stuff, and then we'll get an aerial view that we can make some judgment calls off of. I guess it is probably eventually worth exploring and seeing if that area. I'm almost positive that's just a lava lake and not anything to get excited about. But hey, it would be fantastic to find a village as well. But I think that is going to do it for me today. Stay tuned for the next episode where we will probably go hunting after this little patch of sugarcane. Or actually, was there another patch of sugarcane? I thought I saw maybe one more. No, well, okay. We can at least get this sugarcane and then start growing and harvesting it and making tons that way. Yeah. Maybe also trying to track down some spiders in the caves so that we can get some string, which will give us the ability to make bows and dispensers and fishing farms, AFK fishing farms, which are definitely going to help us out quite a bit. But anyway, that is definitely all that I have time for. So I will see you in the next episode. Let me know in the comments. Also, yes, let me know in the comments what you think about the rules regarding sky access and whether underwater counts. I think with regard to the Nether in the end, we'll probably leave that until we figure out whether robots can enter the Nether in the end by themselves. But yeah, because then they could make us a little hidey hole before we enter, and we can sort of see there. But let me know what you think about being underwater. As I've said many times at this point, I will see you in the next episode. Cheers.